would like to invite on stage Robert Mourik, Incoming Chair, BEREC Chair 2025, so next year, and Chair of ComReg. Robert, over to you.
Well, let's see if the technology holds up today. Thank you, Philippe. Thank you very much for those nice words. And to all here in the audience and to people online, can I welcome you most heartily to this 12th BEREC Stakeholder Forum. The 12th already, and it's a very important event on the BEREC calendar. It is an event where BEREC gets to interact with all its stakeholders. And I don't know whether you were here this morning and had meetings with the co-chairs upstairs. That for us is perhaps the most important part of the day. That's where we hear of new developments, where we hear what the market is doing, where we get ideas, etc. And I hope you made use of that, or were able to make use of that opportunity. The co-chairs in BEREC, they are the virtual engine room of the organization. They are the driving force of BEREC. Today is also an occasion where, and this big hall here is indicative of that, where we can discuss potential topics for the work program of next year. I'm the incoming chair, and as incoming chair of BEREC, it's my responsibility to come up with a work program for next year. And this gathering here is very important for us to gather ideas, to hear what you're thinking, to get inspiration. We have a call for inputs, of course, out there. You can check the BEREC website. We would hope that you send us all your ideas and suggestions, but today is a kind of a first step to hear from you what you have to say. To speak with a Chinese proverb that everyone knows, we live in interesting times, far too interesting. We have unfortunately, the full-scale invasion in Ukraine still ongoing after all these years. A new war has erupted in Gaza. We have very important US elections later this year that could be of great influence in Europe too. And closer to home, we will have European elections with a new commission, a new parliament. And on top of that, we are closer again. We're looking at a white paper being published. We know that next year the code will be revised. We have a large number of digital pieces regulation being implemented. The BEREC regulation is going to be revised. So against this backdrop of change and uncertainty, we have to come up with our work program for next year. And what I wanted to do today in a few minutes is explain to you how we're going to come up with that work program. We started already back in January when we sent the outline work program to the EU institutions, to the Parliament, to the Commission, to the Council, and we are awaiting their feedback. In parallel now, we are seeking your inputs from all our stakeholders, externally and internally in BEREC as well, to see what we need to do. The outcome of that process will be that in May, June, around that time, we will gather all the inputs and weigh them up against each other and see how much capacity and time we have. We will collate them and evaluate them and then discuss them in BEREC at the various plenaries. Hopefully then, by October, we will be able to have a public consultation, and in December, we should be able to adopt the work program for next year. You can give your inputs before close of business on the 9th of April. And really, it would be very much appreciated if you do. We're not starting from a blank sheet of paper when we draft our work program. Tasks set out in the code, in the BEREC regulation, are of influence on the work program. We're required to produce a set of guidelines for from the Open Internet regulation, for example. That is part of the work program. Similarly, in the roaming regulation, we have to produce a set of guidelines for wholesale and retail roaming. That goes into the work program. We are part of the high-level group for the DMA, and as we could see recently, that the Commission asks for advice. That is part of the work program. And then we have this kind of, I call it the Donald Rumsfeld category of things that we know will come up, but we don't know how big they are or how much work they will involve. The white paper, for example, will probably require us to comment next year on proposals. We will, as I said, we will have the European Communications Code being revised. That is part of the work program, but all we can do now is reserve some time. And then we have things that will pop out from left field, things we don't know that we will need to deal with. They are the unknown unknowns. As I said, we don't start with a blank piece of paper. So how is this work program then built up? A number of mandatory projects that come out of the code, the Open Internet Implementation Report, the Article 82 update to the VHCN guidelines. That's kind of the first layer. The second layer are a number of recurring projects that we do that we think are very helpful. Although they're not obligatory, they're very helpful for the working of the internal market. For example, the regulatory accounting and practice report, the WACC parameters that we calculate. Then we have a number of carryover projects. Our work program is a multi-annual work program. So projects that started in 2024 carry over into 2025, and we'll have to deal with them. And then finally, we have spare capacity. And that is the space in the work program where we can start projects, 1 or 2 year projects that we would like to talk to you today about and that we would like to hear about. So once we get your comments in, your suggestions in, we will put them in the big tombola and we will see how we can judge them. And we use the three BEREC strategic objectives and priorities to evaluate them. And that is that they should promote either full connectivity or supporting sustainable and open digital markets or empowering end users. They are the kind of key strategic objectives that are coming straight out of the Communications Code. And if you send us your suggestions, please stick to the format that we have suggested on the BEREC website, so that you give us the title, that you tell us kind of what strategic priority it's linked to, a short description of the project so that we can assess it, the preferred output. Do you want a report? Do you suggest a workshop? Do you think guidelines are required, etc.? And then, of course, who you are as well. So, as I said before, your ideas are valuable. send them in before the end of April, the end of the 9th of April. We really value it because we would like to see what the future holds, what the forward-looking perspective is that BEREC needs to adopt. And even if you have suggestions for improvements rather than a project, they're welcome too. And we hope that you give us a clear idea of what your expectations are for that suggestion. And with that, I would like to thank you very much, and I'll hand back to Philippe. Philippe.
Thank you very much, Robert. May I ask Tonko to join us on stage? Tonko, thank you. Thank you very much, Robert. Tonko is joining us, and this is now the moment for you to ask the question that you never dare to ask, in particular on the work program, draft work program 2025, but broader questions are acceptable, I think. So who wants to start? Be courageous. Raise your... Ben from Ethno. Thank you for breaking the ice. Ben. Who else? So that I can already catch. Yes. Here, Anton.
All right.
Yes. Who else? Okay. Go ahead, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that overview. Maybe just with regards to the upcoming revision of the EECC, are there any work items that you already anticipate for the BEREC Work Programme? I mean, you talked a little bit about the updated guidelines for VRCN, in particular, I assume for Criterion 3, but maybe you can share a little bit about your thoughts so far.
Right. Shall I take that one?
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Yes, as I said before in my speech, we have kind of reserved time and space and capacity of our working groups to deal with the revision of the code. The problem is we don't quite know what the scope is going to be, what how much work is going to be involved. So at the moment, we have this kind of catch-all piece of time that we've set aside. But it is very much on our work program. It's very much something that we will have to deal with. We just don't know exactly what form it will take. If you have certain ideas about that, perhaps you have information that I don't have, then let us know.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Robert. Anton?
Thank you. Anton Horschko of Deutsche Telekom. My question is driven by a very visible and ever-increasing convergence between the services, but also the networks provided by traditional telcos, and also by other players such as like content providers, hyperscalers. Well, we are facing, as telcos, we are facing an extremely broad range of obligations. The best example is, for example, in consumer protection. We have to summarize the pre-contract information, then we provide summary of a contract, then if God forbid we want to change anything in the contract when it still runs, then the customer will normally be able to depart without any fees, any penalties, and so on and so on. And when, I think this is also something which we have, all of us, or at least most of us, experienced personally, when there are major changes in terms and conditions of some digital services, then it goes much easier and smoother. It's very often just like a brief list of what is being changed in best case, and then there is down below a lonely button removing all uncertainty. Agree and proceed. So this is why my question towards both chairs, whether you see the need to look deeper, compare and think about the changes in the level of burden upon the traditional telcos and the hyperscalers, and if yes, then which would be the priority areas for that, for you to look in the coming years into that?
Before you reply, we're running already late, so may I ask the next people asking questions to keep it short. It was a good speech, Anton, but let's try to keep it short. Okay, go, please.
Okay, I'll take this one. Well, you're right. Markets do converge, and this line between telecom service and digital service is blurred. And maybe we should think about introducing some kind of new obligations in a digital world for possibly some services of big tech. On the other hand, many of these classic telecom-related obligations emerged through the times, well, as a result of some behaviors on the market. So in any case, we need to protect the consumer. So I think we should discuss it, maybe with the review of the code.
So Maria, then Luc, and then Claudio. Okay.
Yes. Maria Teresa from CCA. So I have a question on the Data Act implementation. In particular, the BEREC Work Programme talks a lot about cloud switching provisions, but maybe could you give us more insight on how BEREC plans to implement also other provisions of the Data Act? And also, when personal data are included, involved, is BEREC maybe thinking about a collaboration with the European Data Protection Board? Supervisory Board.
Okay. Well, yes, you're right. We talk a lot about switching. For the other part of your question, well, it doesn't come so natural to us as BEREC, and also we have to see for the national designation of our membering NRAs. But yes, as BEREC, we are really deep into all digital files, and so we are into Data Act, and we will discuss. Maybe it could be addressed in the next work program. And if you have some concrete idea on what we could do, you can as well contribute to this public consultation on the work program.
Thank you very much. Luc?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Luc Hendricks from ECTA. I have a question for both of you, and it's a recurring question that we have every year, I would say. They are very important files that are on the table. The experience that we have had with the last files, and certainly the gigabit connectivity recommendation, is not so good, as you say, because at the final, the Article 74 is still not in line with the code. And what and how could BEREC improve the public debate and make sure that all those topics that can be largely debated in public in a way that if somebody says something and another person disagrees, that those exchanges of views and contradictory views can be discussed in public so that everybody understands what the positions are. Thank you.
Well, the stakeholder forum is a place where we do that. Well, currently this is the only large public event which we organize, but we are open to any kind of discussion. We have a lot of workshops. Those workshops are external, are open to such a discussion. Okay, they are maybe not so public. They are public, but we meet in a close circle of persons. But of course, BEREC is open to discuss everything, but we are not the one producing the recommendation, really. So.
Okay, sorry. Okay, Donald, go ahead. Include you afterwards.
Thank you, Philippe. One of the questions we have is BEREC will
introduce yourself.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Donald Connor. I'm Donald Connor.
Europe.
I'm Donald Connor, and I'm speaking on behalf of MVNO Europe. So one of the questions we have is that BEREC has decided to publish a draft report on the evolution of private and public 5G networks. As part of that, will BEREC prioritize promoting wholesale access to the new network technologies such as 5G as a way to foster competition and efficient investment, and also ensure that in the spirit of promoting competition, that Article 52.2 of the code with regard to pro-competition conditions and spectrum license is adhered to?
You don't know.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say that we did draft that report, and there will be a follow-up to that. We are still thinking about what that report should exactly say, and there will be a workshop organized later on this year. I think the 24th of April, if I'm not mistaken. So give us as much information as you you have to say what your issues are, and that will be taken on board. Whether we can do something as BEREC is a big question. As I said, it's an unregulated market, and perhaps we will have to take this to our DMA stream in order to do anything with that.
Thank you, Rob. Claudio?
Hello, good
Try
afternoon.
to catch my eye, if you want to, because we are a bit blinded by the light here. So raise your hand so that I see you, okay? Sorry, Claudio, go ahead.
No worries, Philippe. Good afternoon, everyone. Claudio Teixeira from BEUC, European Consumer Organization. Just a quick intro. I'd like to apologize in advance to Anton for all those burdensome obligations that you have to face. I'm quite sure to blame for some of them. We kindly disagree on how much necessary they are. On that note, I would like to just thank you all for this great event. Indeed, it's a great way to have stakeholders to discuss and engage. But coming back to what Luke has already said, and apologies if it's a bit repetitive, we do agree that it would be important at this moment where we see, from a consumer perspective, a growing trend for market deregulation and consolidation starting to take hold across the board, indeed in Europe. Now, even more so when we see what comes out of the white paper, of the famous now white paper, but also what we're seeing when it comes to concrete Commission decisions, when it comes to national markets. I would like to thank you in advance for the BEREC opinion on the significant developments in the Maltese market on infrastructure access. We're apparently seeing the Commission saying that 2 operators is enough in some circumstances. So given all this context and looking at the program for 2025, we would like to ask if chairs will be open in their availability to, indeed as Luke suggested, to have some more discussion going on this, be more specific when it comes to maybe some more dedicated workshops, and in particular, BEUC would like to be very open on this, to maybe have a joint workshop with consumers to bring a discussion on what this trend is doing on the ground when it comes to the concrete effects on consumers, on end users, meaningly to debate on the negative consequence of that, which has been, so far as we can see, higher prices, lower quality of service, less transparency, and indeed everything which seems to be the reasons why you should want to further implement the code, not possibly roll it back. Thank you so much.
If I don't see any hands raised, I will assume that you have no more questions. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So on this one, the case you mentioned is still pending, so I would not go into details. For us, the BEREC, I mean, you know that we are, as regulators, always talking about the competition, and we wouldn't like to see the competition harmed, as we wouldn't like to see consumers' protection and consumers' right of choice harmed. So for us, it's very important to keep that. And on the other hand, the fact is that the world is changing. So I think we need to discuss really, we have to have some serious discussion about how to proceed and what to do with the legislation, how to dimension our regulation, and how to proceed to really achieve benefits for consumers, but also for the European economy and for the whole ecosystem. I don't think we should rush into any fast decisions. We really need this discussion, and we are, of course, open to BEUC as well, as we did in past.
Thank you very much, Tonko. No hand raised, so thank you very much for your question. We need your input on a serious matter, so pull out your phone, please. Earlier we had a dry run, now it's a serious question. So, can you see the question? And Tonko, Rob, stay put. We will visualize the result in a minute. Valentine, have you sent the questions? Yes? Yep. The results will appear. Okay. Moving. Please vote. This will determine the future, your future, the future of the telecom industry in Europe for the next 10 years. So, have your voice heard? BEREC? No? Well, it's still moving. Look, you see, more external workshop. Are you voting with several phones? What do you think?
Well,
any lesson to be drawn from this?
I'm happy with the results, actually. Yeah, it shows that all we currently do is relevant. So, yeah.
More common approaches. Well,
yeah.
we can. Well, it seems to stabilize. Thank you very much for your thing. Please join me in thanking the chairs for their great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.